it's a great pleasure to welcome Jon Davison onto the Yes Music podcast. Today he's come to talk about Mirror to the Sky. Hello, Jon.
Hey, how's it going, Kevin?
Really well. And Mark is here as well.
Hello, Mark.
Hi, Jon. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Excited to talk about the new record.
Absolutely.
Yes, well, I'm really excited to talk to you as well. I've been wanting this for a long time because I'm a big fan of you as a singer, number one, I have to say. And I'm going to start off with the first question, and that's about singing, actually. So you've been the lead vocalist for Yes for quite a long time. How long did it take before you actually felt comfortable with the band?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for the most part, I felt comfortable right away because Chris and Steve and Alan and Jeff were so welcoming. So naturally that relaxed me psychologically. But I will say, just as what an athlete might experience, there's definitely highs and lows throughout one's entire career. So it's not like there's one or the other. It's sort of there's always both in tandem.
Yeah.
And that can always rattle one's confidence. But I think ultimately, having that challenge is probably the most compelling acting force that helps you strive for excellence.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the funny thing is, I remember seeing the first bit of video that came out when you guys did the Pacific Rim shows when you first joined it. And I thought that you were fantastic right from the very beginning. So it almost seemed like you were comfortable right from the onset.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, we're going to talk about Mirror to the Sky, and we'd like to congratulate you first of all because we both really love the new album. So how would you describe Mirror to the Sky to fans so that they know what's coming?
Right. Well, our title track is about 14 minutes long.
Yeah.
And there are 3 other songs on the album as well that clock in at 9 minutes each. So that should be a pretty good indication of what what we set out to accomplish. And it's very much, there's a sense of re-energization within the band because we went with rockier tempos. There's definitely more musical complexity involved.
And that was a deliberate plan, was it?
It really was. And Thomas Weber at Inside Out was very instrumental in encouraging us to extract from ourselves, from within, and throughout our creative process to push the envelope and, take risks, that kind of thing. He gave us complete creative control, of course, but he definitely pointed our creative endeavors in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I've been one of the people who've been really promoting and pushing, saying that I really thought that this new album was going to be a really big step forward, and I was very happy to hear that it was. So my next question for you is, what are the ingredients of a great Yes album?
Well, probably the things I just outlined. I think that's what's always been best on any Yes record, is pushing the envelope and the longer pieces which require that musical complexity.
Was there any discussion amongst the band in terms of those longer pieces? Were there certain members of the band who really wanted to get back to doing longer pieces and others who were persuaded?
No, I think we all were on point with that. It was definitely like at the forefront of our minds.
I was just wondering, just as a follow-up quickly, lyrically, because I think the lyrics are fantastic on this, and one of my favorite songs is Circle of Time. Was the lyrics something that you guys talked about prior, or is this just something that came to you as you wrote it?
Yeah, it just comes to you as you go. Generally, we start with the music, and then the lyrics follow. It's always a fun challenge to sort of try and decode or interpret what the music is trying to convey through its raw emotion. And Yes music is a perfect example of it's like soundtrack music. It definitely suggests storytelling, and it's fun to try to take on that challenge of what is the music trying to convey lyrically.
Yeah, and I think added into that mix this time and last time, Paul K. Joyce's orchestrations, which are fantastic. He's a great find, isn't he?
Oh, he really is. I'm just so blown away by how he's able to embellish in just the right way, never crowding or taking things too far. Because let's face it, Yes music is already symphonic. It's a very thick sound. So then how do you add in orchestra without stepping on other people's toes? I know that Peter Banks way back in the day had an issue when the other guys really wanted to move forward with a big classical sound. Well, that sort of pushes out the guitar. There's a conflict there. But Paul's sensitivity to the music and the respect, he added so much, but just the right amount and in all the right places.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's true on that song we've just been talking about. But you get songwriting credits in many of the new Yes songs. Going back as far as Heaven and Earth, actually, you've done quite a lot of the writing. Were you surprised that the band were keen for you to get involved so quickly? And what do you feel you bring to the songwriting?
Yeah, I really was surprised in the beginning how quickly they sort of expected me to fill John Anderson's role in the studio. They had confidence in me on stage, obviously. Yes. And then I think just by proxy, because I took the chair, they looked to me to sort of be that studio replacement as well.
Mm.
You know, John was such a creative force, a driving force in the studio. And there I was in that chair. So they sort of looked to me for the same.
Yeah. Great.
I really felt like Heaven and Earth was a huge disappointment. And I know I'm not the only one. And I'm just speaking candidly. You know, I had such high hopes. That was my chance to sort of come full circle and prove myself as a well-rounded artist, not just one on stage, but one that could thrive in the studio.
Yeah.
But, you know, the album never developed properly. The songs never got the full treatment and were never polished. So what we basically released was a series of demos. And that was a huge disappointment for me, I think, ultimately. But I feel I'm back on track now, and I really feel like I'm able to, you know, see myself develop, and I've been given that space, that chance.
Yeah.
So John, I'm curious about that, what you just said there. Do you think that was a situation where maybe you guys were rushed into the studio too quickly and weren't ready as a band yet to do that album?
Well, there's several factors involved. It was actually the opposite. We ran out of time. We had to get on tour. We had to get on the road. So we had to leave it incomplete, because what we did is wait around a lot studio. So there was time wasted. You know, Roy Thomas Baker was going through a lot of personal things at the time, and we were just sort of waiting for him to get into focus and you know, get it together. And and I say that with complete respect to him. You know, I don't mean any disrespect. He was just going through personal things. And it slowed progress down in the studio. And then, again, we ran out of time and had to resume our touring.
Understandable. So Jay Shellen, who's now in the band, and I'm a big fan of his drumming, he's incredibly good. Jay Shellen isn't credited with writing at all on the new album. But is he actually a songwriter, or is he just a drummer, like a musician, and doesn't really write songs?
No, he actually does. And he does play piano, which is interesting.
Oh, great. Like Alan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's very true. Him and I have already worked on a few things in years past that we're going to revisit. I think why he didn't really step forward with The Quest and Mirror to the Sky was Alan was involved in both. Alan was even involved in the beginning stages of Mirror to the Sky. So naturally, Jay stepped back, you know, to be more supportive, to give Alan that space. But now that Jay is at the forefront, it really will be interesting to see how there's a sort of dynamic shift and reworking. You know, will be a new lineup essentially at the forefront of writing together.
It's interesting that it seems like Alan and Jay had a very, very close relationship, you know, almost like a mentor situation. Would you agree?
Oh, I definitely would. Yeah, I definitely would. And it was a beautiful relationship to stand by and witness.
A question which has been asked, so we'd like to get a definitive answer on this. Is Alan on this record at all, or is it all Jay?
It ended up being all Jay.
Yeah.
The time just didn't align. He was scheduled to be a part of it, and it just didn't happen, unfortunately. But his spirit is definitely there, and as you say, Jay and him were so close and continue to be on some deeper level. So I believe Alan's spirit is there behind the music, guiding and blessing us.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you write with Steve and Billy. What are their similarities and differences in their songwriting styles?
Yeah, it just really comes down to style mostly. Billy's roots are more in the sort of 80s and 90s West Coast sound, if you will. And Steve is like the great preserver of the classic sound. And that's not so cut and dry. I mean, they both sort of venture into those opposite areas as well. But that's probably the best way I could think to describe it. And although I prefer the latter, Steve's sort of preservation approach, if you will, I'd like to think that I'm sort of the intermediary. I'm in the middle where I can sort of swing between the two and help bring things together. I can often be the glue and bring those two aspects together. So we don't pivot too far one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. And Circles of Time is clearly a piece. I mean, it's credited just to you, isn't it? And so it's your song. But is that your favourite song of them all on the album, or is there other ones that really stick out for you?
Well, although I'm very proud of Circles of Time, I don't really play favorites with an album. I do have different moods, and sometimes I'll gravitate to one particular song or another, depending on whatever my mood is of the day. But to be honest with you guys, I haven't actually listened to the album as a whole in quite a long time. I've stepped back from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very healthy thing to do, because I was so intimately close with it, fostering this music for so long. It's nice to be able to step back and sort of clean the slate, if you will. And now I can approach listening to it slightly more objectively as a listener would.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a musician as well that releases my own stuff. And I also tend to do that where I mix the record and then step back for about a month or so and then re-listen to it with fresh ears. So I think it's definitely a good approach to do that.
It is, yeah. So
yeah.
I've been, listening to the singles, Cut from the Stars, All Connected. And I'm so wanting to get into the album again and sort of try and listen to it vicariously, imagining how the other people out there will be listening to it. So I'm just waiting for the actual release, and then I'll dive in deep. And
Nice,
right?
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm curious. What do you think of the CD idea? The CD that's added with the album. Do you like that idea of having a separate CD with bonus tracks?
I trust Thomas Wabber at Inside Out so much for making that executive decision for marketing purposes. So I just go along with it. As long as, I always say, and Steve agrees, I think we all do, that the extra songs on the bonus CD or second vinyl, they are in no way less important. They are equal in our minds. So as long as we sort of operate under that banner, then I'm all for the bonus CD.
Yeah, I mean, I very much like the 3 songs on the sort of bonus CD, although it's perhaps the wrong way to describe it. Particularly Unknown Place, which I think is a really fine and long song. So yeah, I'm in agreement there with
yes,
you.
I agree with you on that, Kevin, because I really love that song. Unknown Place is one of the best on the album, I think.
Yeah. A little bit about you as a singer now for a moment. You're in Yes, obviously, lead singer, but you're also the singer in Arc of Life, and you also have started singing with John Lodge. Now, when you write and when you sing, do you approach things differently for each group, or is it just the same across the board?
No, I really do approach things differently. I think it's only natural that one does so because it's a different chemistry of various musicians. So I think it's only natural that things should be different. There's things I've written that I've shared with John Lodge, for example. We've been writing together. Those are ideas that I wouldn't really approach Yes with. So that makes it really fun, and I love that challenge, that idea of trying to be more versatile as a songwriter.
Yeah. One more thing about your singing on the new Yes album. There's one of the songs, and I forget which one it is, where you sing in a very different character, a much lower range. Was that something, again, which was deliberate, or how did it come about?
Well, that's one of Steve's songs, and I believe it's 1 Second Is Enough.
Ah, right, yes.
I'm quite certain that's the one you're referring to. And we went into the studio. I hadn't pre-prepared anything. We just thought, well, what shall I sing? And he said, why don't you try some things? And I just sang in tandem with him. So we're singing literally the same part, the same octave together in unison. And it just has this, we create a new type of vocal sound by blending our two voices.
Yeah.
And it just sort of happened. We didn't really contrive it. It just, we tried it and there it was and it worked.
Great.
It definitely works really nicely.
Yeah.
So the next question is, if you were to compare The Quest and Mirror to the Sky, what would you say they have in common, and what is vastly different between the two?
Well, The Quest was really an album of firsts in many respects. I know Trevor Rabin sort of stepped in as captain or producer for the Talk album in the early 90s.
Yep.
But at least with our lineup, and since I've been in the band, the fact that a member has stepped forward to be the producer, that's a definite first.
Yeah.
And it was really the first time, if you think about it, the first time the 6 of us, our particular lineup, including Jay, were to work on an album. And I think we worked out a lot of kinks and gained a lot of confidence and found our stride with The Quest, which helped pave the road for a smoother creative process with Mirror to the Sky.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's almost like The Quest was like the blueprint and Mirror to the Sky was the final product.
That's right. Yeah.
And does that mean that the next album is going to be, even further in that progress?
I sure hope so. I mean, we're certainly on this creative roll now. I can feel the momentum happening, and it's all really exciting.
Yes, I have to say it's extremely exciting to think that there's already another record in the works already. And I've said it before, and I think you'll agree, John, that songwriting is like a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it gets.
That's really amazing. I was thinking that exact same thing, Mark. I heard Neil Diamond, in fact, he was once quoted saying that very thing, that songwriting is like a muscle you have to exercise in order to develop.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that's always inspired me. So I look to that sort of quote for inspiration when the going gets rough.
Absolutely.
So we have seen the new advert for the 2024 UK tour, and it's a good name, the Classic Tales of Yes Tour.
Yeah, isn't that exciting? I actually came up with that. I'm sort of impressed by
great.
that.
So does that mean, though, that we won't be getting any full Relayer in the UK and Europe? And do you still plan to play Relayer in the US this year?
Well, the set is really still being designed for the tour next year and this year. The overarching theme that we're developing is still underway. So I can't really say specifically, but I know without a doubt we will pay some homage to the Relayer album.
Oh, good. That's great.
And I mean, you're based in the UK now. Were you disappointed that the UK and the Europe tour wasn't possible in the end?
Oh, completely. Yeah. It was devastating. It's such a disappointment, but the dominoes are still falling in reaction to COVID. And unfortunately, insurance doesn't cover for it. So as a business, we have to be, financially prudent. I know this all sounds sort of boring, but, we have to play it safe because we are a business trying to survive in this world. And we love touring Europe, though. And we get so much love and appreciation coming back to us from fans there. And we really want to make it up to them in any way we possibly can.
Yeah.
So, John, I have one question quickly about living in the UK. Obviously, being an American, it must be interesting to live in a different country. But do you think that the move, well, I'm wondering, was the move done basically so that you'd have more access to Steve as far as songwriting? Because I get the feeling that he's more of a one-on-one in-person sort of person rather than doing stuff over the internet.
Yes, you're exactly right. But it was interesting. I actually moved to England because I fell in love with an amazing woman. And I was,
Great.
She's now my wife. And interestingly enough, as a side note, she's also the daughter and manager of John Lodge.
Fantastic.
It's a great connection there.
Yes, we got married last December, but I'd been living here, pretty much right away since we met 4 plus years ago. And I was just here. It was, the stars aligned. Steve was ready to make an album again.
Yeah.
And I was here, and that was like the final little impetus or push he needed to say, well, let's actually get into a room and start, getting this together.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic story. So we've got just a few moments left. So a couple more questions if we can squeeze them in.
Sure.
I know you say it's still very fluid and you don't know quite what you're going to be playing this year or next year, but are there particular songs from the new album, Mirror to the Sky, which you would particularly like to play?
Oh, yeah. I mean, wow. I guess the most obvious one is Cut from the Stars because of its, energetic level. It's sort of stage worthy already. I can just imagine that happening. Yeah. And All Connected, the 9-minute piece, All Connected, our second single, I'd really like to tackle that one. But ultimately, I would choose the title track, Mirror to the Sky, which clocks in at about 14 minutes. So to do that live would be stellar.
That would be absolutely brilliant. Yeah. It reminds me of the days when I heard Mind Drive in Birmingham, UK. And that was a new song, and it was long and it was exciting. And so that would be fantastic if you do get to play that title song. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but I've written a book about Tormato, which is coming out. And I understand that recently you said that you would quite find it fun to play Tormato in full. And that would be fantastic for me because I'm a huge Tormato fan. Is it one of your favourite Yes albums? It
really is. And it's interesting to always, it's always fun to mention that before Billy J and myself were band members, we were fanboys of Yes. So, of course, we'd love to play it. And hey, you've got your book, Kevin. We should do some kind of joint venture.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I'll come and talk about the book before the concert or something like that. That's wonderful. We have run out of time, I'm afraid. It's been fantastic to speak to you, Jon, and I look forward to seeing you on tour again very soon. And I'm sure that everybody listening to the podcast and all Yes fans will really, really enjoy this new album. So congratulations once again on this fantastic new album and everything that you've done with Yes.
Oh, thank you so much, Kevin, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.